Welcome back to the Holsey Speaker Series. I just finished editing this video and I'm so excited to share it with you. This session is one part conversation and one part mini workshop, so you'll get to apply much of what you learned today in real time. At Holsey, one of our core themes is wellness. And no matter how you slice it, your relationship to feeling calm and grounded is a key part of any wellness practice. And our guest today, Jonny Miller, is the perfect guide to help us dive deeper into this topic. Jonny is an emotional resilience researcher, the host of the Curious Humans podcast, and founder of Nervous System Mastery, a cohort-based course for cultivating calm and agency over your internal state. Let's jump into the session. Jonny, it is an absolute delight to have you here. I remember learning about your work through my brother Dave, I'd say a year or two ago. And since then, we've been following your podcast and your writing. And to share the stage with you is just so cool. And welcome. Really great to have you.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, Mike. And yeah, it's funny. I've been a fan of Holsey since like 2012, maybe, and just so much respect for what you guys have created. So this is a real pleasure to be here as well.
As a quick sign, if you're familiar with Jonny's work, maybe just throw us up some emojis. I know that there's people who have been commenting in the session that they're very excited to have you here, and you're definitely one of those thinkers that many people in our community have also been following. Lots of love coming through. All right, well, Jonny, I know we have a lot that we want to jump into, so I'll hand it over to you, my friend.
Okay, amazing. Let's dive in. All right, so I want to begin by playing what I call the curiosity game. And the way this works is I'll begin by posing a question, and you can then raise your hand, unmute yourself to share what curiosity or question that this arises in you. And the key thing here is we're not answering any of the questions. We're staying in that place of curiosity. So begin by kind of tuning in. What's alive? What's your intention? And we'll do this for about 2 minutes, and I'll begin. So my question is, what is the cost of not being calm? Maybe another question might be, could we be creatively ambitious, but calm at the same time?
How does it feel to be calm in my body?
Isn't calm different for everyone?
Why is calm different for everyone?
And what am I missing when I'm not calm?
How does calm differ in our mind and in our bodies and in our hearts?
Which qualities inside myself are strengthened when I'm calmed?
Beautiful questions. Thank you. So next question from me. How many of you have experienced some degree of burnout or work-related exhaustion in your life? And you can raise your physical hand, raise your virtual hand. And I'm raising my hand here as well as someone who has definitely been through one, maybe two burnouts. Yeah, lots of us here. Lots of us. Thank you guys for sharing. Yeah, it's unfortunately very common in this day and age. And a couple of years back, I co-authored an emotional resilience report, and we surveyed 260 leaders and founders around the world who'd experienced burnout. I'd say I was most affected by some of the personal shares that people said on the impact that burnout had. And like some people talked about turning to alcohol, their mental health, really, they didn't have emotional bandwidth. This one was particularly just really sad. Someone emotionally brittle, developing diabetes, just really, really struggling. And this quote from Jerry Colonna, who lives here in Boulder, he talks about the difference between like ambitious calm, this kind of like healthy sense of ambition with calm, versus what he says is delusional grit. And he says that leaders who persist out of stubbornness, believing themselves to be gritty, are at best delusional and at worst reckless. And the other thing I just wanted to share as kind of food for thought is, any of you guys as engineers or working in the tech space, you might be familiar with this idea of technical debt. And we kind of coined this idea that our nervous systems also have emotional debt. And whenever there's some kind of experience that we have, but it's not fully digested, then over time this accumulates and it creates fragility in our nervous system, creates what's known as allostatic load, and we end up being more reactive. And then the next question I have for you is, what are some barriers to experiencing calm in your life? Basically, what gets in the way of our capacity to move through challenges, to move through adversity with that sense of like deep inner calm and peace. Not enough time, temper, not pausing, multitasking, taking care of everyone and not yourself, content stimulus overload. Beautiful. Does anyone want to share, maybe unpack any of these?
I think mine was quite broad, but anxiety about the future in general can be work things, can be personal things, but I feel like oftentimes when I'm not feeling calm, it's my mind going quickly for me to the future.
Totally. Maybe one more.
This is Betsy. I'll go ahead and share. I think one of the reasons it's hard to be calm is when you have your priorities out of whack, and when you're not prioritizing yourself and your needs, and you're doing all these other things that really don't matter in the long run, that can get in the way of us having that calm that we need.
Thank you. And that feels like it kind of ties into setting boundaries with ourselves, with other people as well. So this is by no means an exhaustive list, but it's 8 of the themes that I've seen arise in a lot of the people that I've worked with. The first is this idea of lack of equanimity. There's a Buddhist idea of like being the mountain amidst the storm, and just cultivating equanimity as a skill and as a practice, something that we can kind of have in ourselves. So the second one was just spoken to, this idea of like lack of boundary setting. And we think of boundaries often with other people and, learning how to say no to things, but it's also boundaries with ourselves and kind of setting creative constraints in our own lives so that we have time to sufficiently recover and take care of ourselves. The third is a really interesting one. This was probably the most common actually that I came across, and it's unexpected. It's lack of permission. And there are many people, myself included at times, who feel guilty for taking time to recover, feel guilty for resting, feel guilty for like not being productive in certain ways. And sometimes all we need is just that like self-permission or permission from someone else. The fourth one is lack of perspective. Often when I think Dave mentioned anxiety, like it's almost as if our awareness closes down and we're only able to see like the very short-term future. But if we're able to zoom the lens out, both in terms of time and in terms of like just ourselves, there's this idea that like this too shall pass. Like however bad something might be today or tomorrow, in like a month from now, even a week from now, it's probably going to be nothing. Limiting beliefs, the idea between fixed versus growth mindset. These are skills that we can learn. They're things we can practice, things that we can really improve. The sixth one is quite a big one, nervous system dysregulation. This is something that I go into a lot of depth in the courses I teach. Foolish grittiness, which I mentioned earlier, kind of mistaking commitment and dedication for being addicted to working. And then the eighth one is lack of community. And this is something I have a huge amount of respect for Holsti for creating, but I think sometimes it can be so good to just be seen in our challenges and seen in our struggles, and also have structures for both giving and receiving support. And knowing how to ask for help is such a huge barrier for many people. There's even an exercise that I did a few years ago where we kind of wrote ourselves permission slips on paper. It was like, I give myself permission to ... And then we wrote these on cards that we kind of carried around in our back pockets for the next week or so. And I think maybe it's like writing it on a sticky note and putting it on your screen. I give myself permission to take a 2-hour break for lunch, or go for a cycle ride when it's sunny outside, or whatever that kind of permission slip that you need. You really can write it for yourself.
I want to call out 2 others. Colleen says, maybe not feeling that we're worthy of recovering.
And maybe an idea that we somehow need to earn our recovery time, that like if we haven't been useful enough, we don't get to recover, and how that is such a friggin' vicious cycle that, when you say it out loud, it often sounds ridiculous, but I think it is a belief that many of us do hold at different times. Well, thank you for these reflections. So I'm going to move on to the second kind of section, which is the fun bit, which is like, there were some of the questions in the first section around like, how do I feel calm in my body versus the mind? And I think it's a really powerful question. So I want to first ask, does anyone have any guesses what these three numbers might represent? Wildest guess. Any
Did
guess?
I have a guess? And I
Uh-huh.
have to admit that I did cheat with the quick Google search.
Oh, yeah.
Is this how many times we blink in a day?
Oh, it's not. I
Oh,
imagine that's a great question. I imagine the number's pretty similar. So it's actually how many breaths do we take per hour, per day, and per week, which is a lot, like 23,000 breaths a day. You're doing it right now. And what I want to make the case for is that using what's known as bottom-up protocols, kind of working with our physiology, specifically developing a deeper relationship to our breathing, is really the most powerful tool that we have to find calm on a daily basis. So what do I mean by this? Well, let's imagine this line is the difference between our subconscious and our conscious awareness. It's known as the critical faculty in nerd speak. And so how are you breathing right now? And just kind of notice how you're breathing in that moment without even necessarily being conscious of it. And as many of you know, the breath is one of the few things that happens on its own, but it can also be consciously shifted. And so for most of us, this is probably an accurate ratio. There's maybe like 2% of the day that we're like consciously breathing. So why does this matter? Why is this of importance? Well, let's just say for the purposes of actually like experiencing what I'm trying to convey in your body, try deliberately breathing a little bit faster than usual for the next couple of minutes, breathing through your mouth and breathing into your upper chest. So you can kind of sense in your body what I'm actually speaking to. So this matters because there's a part of our brain called the insula, which it's basically spying on the way that we're breathing. And it's using this data to then activate the nervous system through the vagus nerve. This vagus nerve then sends signals to activate the sympathetic part of our nervous system associated with fight flight, you might have heard of. And this sends signals to our endocrine system, which creates this like cascading effect and very measurable changes in our blood chemistry. And then these changes in blood chemistry pretty quickly make their way back to your brain, and they impact the emotions that you're feeling and the thoughts that you have. And this is where we kind of often get into trouble, especially with things like anxiety, is sometimes these thoughts and feelings that we have, they will serve to then reinforce or even exacerbate this kind of shallow breathing pattern through the mouth, which is generating that sympathetic response in the nervous system. And burnout arises when we spend too long in this kind of this high-tone sympathetic state. And people get adrenal fatigue, exhaustion from being this for too long. So the obvious question is, if this happens a lot, and I imagine some of you can relate to this, what can we do about it? And one very real possibility is using meditation or equanimity training, which basically creates a pause between the stimulus and the response to develop this like psychological distance between our thoughts and emotions and who we are. And so that kind of like cuts that piece of the vicious circle off. You could reframe things. You could tell yourself a different story, like, wow, I'm really activated right now. That must mean that I really care about this. You can kind of do a positive reframe, do some journaling. And at the same time, this is really challenging to do. Like, I've meditated for over a decade and I still struggle to influence my physiology just by changing the thoughts I'm having. So this is the vagus nerve. It means wandering nerve, and all of our emotions originate from this nerve essentially. And having higher vagal tone, as it's known, basically allows us to relax faster. And does anyone want to guess what percentage of body signals are sent from your brain to your body versus from your body to your brain? Like 50-50, 90-10.
Thinking
What do you think
90-10, body to the brain.
Okay,
Even
90-10
less.
body to the brain.
595.
Less. How much less?
595.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're kind of close. It's 80-20. There's 4 times more efferent nerves than there are afferent nerves. And basically what this means is, at least in my interpretation, is that the top down kind of mechanisms of reframes, meditation things, they're like 4 times less effective than changing your physiology. And these so-called bottom-up protocols are generally more efficient and more effective at changing how you're feeling. And so, as an example, if we're able to take conscious control of our breathing pattern, so for example, breathing lower down into the belly with an extended exhale through the nose, that will have the reverse effect. It will send those signals through the insula, which will activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And this then will have that cascading effect of release, again, changes in blood chemistry, which then lead to more calm emotions, thoughts, and feelings. And that then is kind of self-reinforcing. So, and you know, this can happen in less than a couple of minutes sometimes. Like, it's remarkably effective how quickly your breathing can shift your state. Okay, because I'm a bit nerdy, what I've created, many of you guys have heard of if this, then that. It's like if you do a tweet, then it does a thing, saves to Evernote, or take a photo, it saves to Dropbox. Well, I've created if this, then breathe. So if you're feeling anxious about the future, then try breath of calm. Or if you're feeling overwhelmed, then you can do what's known as a single breath hum. And I thought we could practice both of these breathing practices together, just so you guys can have a sense of like how it feels in your body. All right, so we will begin with the breath of calm. Basically, what this is inhale through the left side of the nostril, hold at the top for 3, outside of the right for 6, and then we switch. And I've used this, I mean, I've lost count of how many times I've used this. I've used it like when I've been about to go on stage before a TEDx talk. I've used it like before first dates, like in the bathroom. I've like used it in so many different places, and it's really very effective. Like even 2 or 3 rounds. And if you're curious about the whole nostril thing, we're both slowing the breath down and kind of decreasing the aperture of the breathing. And there's also some early research to show that it balances the hemispheres of the brain as well. So you basically bring your right hand up to your face, using your thumb to cover your right nostril and your ring finger to cover your left nostril. So it's like in for 3, hold for 3, out right for 6, and then you switch. So everyone take a breath. And we're going to begin. So inhaling left for 3, inhale, 2, 3, holding both, 2, 3, out right for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale right, 2, 3, holding both, 2, 3, out left, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale left, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale right, 2, 3, hold, 2, 3, exhale left, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now lowering your right hand down, taking a moment for the breath to settle, feeling any shifts in your body. And we'll end with 2 full breaths in and sighs. So inhale all the way and sigh. One more, inhale. And just spend a moment here, tuning inwards, tuning into your interoceptive capacity, your inner landscape, noticing how you feel in your body. And opening your eyes if you had your eyes closed. And we'll transition straight into what's known as the single breath hum. This is how it's known in research studies. It's also known bumblebee breath in the yogic tradition. And there's 2 ways we can do this. We can either just do a hum, or if you want to amplify the effect, you know, and you haven't got headphones in, you can put your thumbs in your ears. So your thumb's kind of in your ear canal. These 2 fingers over your eyes, and then ring fingers kind of touching your nose. So it basically looks like a full breath in, and then you hum and you feel the vibration in your sinus cavity with your fingers on your eyes and your nose and your thumb and your ear. So let's all do 3 rounds of this. So bring your hands up, full inhale in, inhaling, and begin. Inhale again. And last one. And lowering your hands down, feeling the effects of that, letting your breath settle, and feeling the nitric oxide. It's opening up blood vessels. And taking a full breath. This is a great one for Zoom fatigue as well. If you spend your life looking in front of a screen, this is a great one to do in between breaks. It really like loosens up the tightness that can build behind the eyes. So this is a really fun one.
A quick question about that one. Were we exhaling through our mouth or through our nose on that exhale? Or does it not matter?
Mouth closed. Yeah, my apologies. Through the nose.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because if you hum through your mouth, it's like you're like singing. At least that's what happens to me anyway. Yeah, through your nose.
Okay.
Beautiful. How do you guys feel? Do you feel any different after those 2 breathing practices? Do you have a sense of these shifts in your blood chemistry as you're changing your breathing pattern in this way?
I don't know why I don't do those breathing exercises more often, honestly, because it's such a powerful grounding experience. I feel more awake. My body feels present. We were talking about this just before the call about methods for just feeling present and in the moment. And those breathing exercises just seem to, when I open my eyes, time slows down and I reset something inside my body.
There's an interesting relationship between our vision and that feeling as well. When we're in the parasympathetic state, our aperture of vision, our awareness is also more expanded, and you can also do Huberman kind of calls it optic flow. But if you're outside, you're looking at a wide horizon and your aperture of your vision kind of expands, you're looking into the distance. It also has a similar effect. There's this kind of bi-directional relationship between our vision, our breath, and our nervous system state. But yeah, I really encourage you guys to just practice this throughout the day. Like maybe it's before lunch, you kind of want to transition into a place where you can like digest food properly. Maybe it's as you're winding down at the end of the day, doing some stretching, kind of stepping away from work and screens and that kind of thing. And it really doesn't take very long to have a very noticeable effect. And you can also combine these. You can do the alternate nostril breathing for 3 rounds and then do 5 hums. And it's like 3 minutes. It's not really that long at all. You can do it. If you're brave, do it on public transport. I do it outside. So yeah, I just really I want to write a permission slip for all of you guys to just play with this and experiment with this. And it'll stick when you really notice the shift in your body and you're like, oh, wow, I feel really different, or I feel like I'm able to be more present for my partner in this conversation that I'm going to have in 10 minutes time or whatever it is, or about to do a workshop or about to go on stage. It's such a powerful thing to have in our toolkit that doesn't require taking any pills, drinking coffee, anything like this. It's always literally right under our nose the whole time. And the key thing, I should just point out that the exhale should be twice as long as the inhale. So if you have a lower CO2 tolerance or lower lung capacity, you could do in 2, out 4. If you have more CO2 tolerance, you could do in 4, out 8, in 5. I sometimes do in 6, out 12. You can play with that, with those numbers, but just keep the ratio, the exhale twice as long as the inhale. That's the key piece there. I really want to get into questions and space for reflections. And it looks like Lucia asked, what other techniques do I recommend outside of breathing that are somatic in nature and help us calm down on a physical level? So that's a great question. So the first one I just mentioned is using the visual system. So stepping outside, looking at like a wide horizon, if you can, looking up at the sky, or you can even like defocus your eyes. So I'll see if I can do this now, but you just like relax your eyes and it's like you're kind of looking off into space. And this will have a similar effect. You can also forward folds, interestingly, have a similar calming effect. They extend the spine, which creates an effect in the parasympathetic nervous system, which also relaxes us down. There's also orienting through our senses. So there's a term or practice called 3-2-1 in somatic therapy, where you will label 3 things that you can see, 2 things that you can hear, and then 1 thing that you can touch, and then take like a full breath in. And just by kind of revivifying, bringing your aliveness back into your senses, you're coming more back into your body, and that has a calming, grounding effect. I also misread your question when I first read it. You said somatic in nature, but I thought you meant like in nature. And actually nature is a great technique for calming us down. And we literally co-regulate with like forests, we co-regulate with trees, we co-regulate with I have a puppy outside right now, like with other humans. We're kind of riffing off other people's nervous systems, which, you know, can go both ways. If someone else is very activated and stressed, that will activate us in return. But if you have like a partner, and just you have like a 30-second hug, or you just like cuddle in bed for like 5 minutes, like that's another way of just like co-regulating with other people to help to calm us down.
This is kind of like Lucia's question, and similar to what you just answered, but I just want to kind of go into like a more specific scenario. Hypothetically, if you were like afraid of public speaking and you were on stage public speaking, and in that moment you could feel your flight or fight kicking in, and you could feel your heart racing, but you're already on stage. So like maybe not the moment where you like are kind of doing some alternate nose breathing, perhaps, or maybe, but like what would you do in that moment?
Yeah, great question. So I want to answer that in 2 ways. Firstly, it's really helpful if you do this before you get on stage, even in like the 2-minute window before, so that you're kind of in that. Because what happens is sometimes if we go too far outside of our window of tolerance, it just takes longer to bring us back down. But let's say hypothetically, you did the breathing practices, you go on stage and you're still like, oh shit, is that like that fear response? I would say the first thing is bringing and you can do this without anyone knowing, but bringing your awareness into your feet on the floor, bring your awareness into your hands, feeling your hands, and also bring your awareness into the back of your body. And often when we do this, and you can actually feel the breath in the back, like you can try this now. Take a breath, but like feel the back of your rib cage almost expanding slightly. So I'll breathe normally, and I'll breathe into my back. And there's a sense of like expansiveness, and that expansiveness helps to counteract the kind of narrowing that happens when we go into anxiousness. Or the other one is more of a top-down approach, but it's like if you're feeling a lot of activation energy, you can say to yourself, well, I really must care about this. Like I must be so excited. I'm so excited right now. Like, holy shit. And, you know, people say that fear is excitement without the breath. And so it, you know, really just your system is activated. And I still feel very activated before podcasts, sessions like this, but you just use that, you work with that energy. And also, you can also bring your awareness to your breath as you're speaking. And you can like take a deliberate pause and like you know use it for effect to emphasize a point, and take a breath into your belly and like feel your awareness going out to the audience as opposed to kind of contracting in. And it takes practice for sure. Yeah. So like baby steps, but you're basically increasing your window of tolerance for in that scenario of public speaking.
I can imagine there's many of us who are like, okay, I know this is something I want to do, but how do you, for example, make this a part of your practice?
Okay, I'll try and answer this in less than 7 minutes.
Okay.
So first thing I would say is just find something that you're already doing that you can kind of attach this on. So for some people, it might be like brushing just before you brush your teeth. For me, I tend to do it before I try and meditate. I find that meditation is much easier after I've done kind of 3 or 4 minutes of breathing practice. So that's like, you know, once I've got to get out of bed, moved around a bit, but before I have breakfast and start my day. And then also I tend to do it kind of in the half-hour window before falling asleep as well. kind of when I'm like winding down. So kind of bookending your day are two great times. Also transition times can be good, like if there's something that you're already doing, and just like building that habit and that routine. Also committing to like 10 minutes for 10 days in a row can be a great way to kind of jumpstart that. There's also a kind of cadence or coherence breathing practice that is great for increasing heart rate variability and can just be good for kind of tuning into your breath. And really what we're trying to do is increase breath awareness throughout the day as well. So it's not just about the 5 or 10 minutes that you're doing it during the day, but it's the whole time. So that if you're right now looking at this and you notice, oh, I'm not breathing, or I'm breathing shallow into my chest, you can just bring a moment of like breath awareness into your day. The other thing that I'll touch on is practices for developing what's known as interoception are incredibly helpful. And that's basically our capacity to sense, track, and feel our internal state at any point. And doing breath practice does help with interoception, because you literally feel where the breath moves in your body. Like, is it going down into the belly? Like, how do I feel after? You can also explore what's known as NSDR, or non-sleep deep rest. I can share a link to some good videos there as well, which it's basically like a 15 to 20 minute guided power nap where you're lying down, but you're listening and you're scanning your body for different points. And this is building presence and awareness to different parts of the body as you're doing it. And you become more aware of the internal sensations, which are going on all the time. But because we're busy, we're working, we're going about our day, we're just less aware of what's going on internally. So that's also really, really helpful. And then I mean, it's really like with most things, I think it comes down to experimenting for yourself. And then when you notice the difference in how you feel, you won't have to like force yourself or try to fit it in, because you'll naturally be like, oh shit, I feel like I want to do a breath practice right now. Or for me, sometimes when I'm like walking our puppy in the park, I just like sit down on the bench and do a little bit of breathing. And it's just, NSDR is fantastic. I agree.
Thank you. I wasn't actually familiar with NSDR, but I have done yoga nidra, and it sounds like it may be somewhat similar, but I have to look more into NSDR too.
Yeah, it's Andrew Huberman's like rewording of yoga nidra, basically.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Very cool.
I can share a YouTube link if anyone's interested.
Yeah. It's funny. We only have 5 minutes left, and we had like a bunch of good questions come in. So I don't know how you are on time, Jonny. If we can go for maybe like
I'm
5
good
minutes.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if people don't mind.
So Kendall was asking, can you share your background on how you came to this practice?
Yeah, the brief version is I spent most of my 20s fairly like disembodied, fairly kind of living from my head, very intellectual. I, about 5.5 years ago, lost my fiance, and the process of grief was my portal into like feeling my emotions, feeling my body, and just becoming much more somatically aware. And from there, I then just became, I think, fascinated by these practices for shifting our state, for accessing like altered states of consciousness, meditation, breath work, somatic experiencing, kind of all these ways of like exploring myself, I guess, is how I'd best put it. So that was kind of my doorway in.
Thank you. I have 2 more questions I wanted to pull up here. One is a comment/question. Say you grew up in a toxic household, walking on eggshells, only to realize that when you spot tension in situations that are logically fairly safe, you go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn. What are some of the best techniques you can use to unlearn this response?
Yeah, great question. So I'd say, there's like a 3-part answer to this. The first one is increasing your sense of somatic self-awareness or interoception, so that you can notice when you are going into one of those 4 states: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And as soon as you notice it, kind of acknowledging it to yourself, like I'm in freeze right now, I'm in dorsal shutdown, as it's known in polyvagal theory. And from there, the first step is to come back into your body, to self-regulate, as it's known. So that could be, if you're in a freeze state, often you'll need to introduce some movement, maybe even some like going for a walk outside. Sometimes there's almost like trapped anger there. So like kind of doing an anger release into the park or into a pillow, something like that, that can kind of move some of that stuck energy. And the third piece, you kind of said growing up in a toxic household, walking on eggshells. So there is likely to be some like stored emotion, like incomplete reflexes, as it's known as, and giving yourself a space where you feel safe to fully go into those emotions and feelings which weren't safe to feel or express in your childhood, but are now as an adult, and like creating space for all of the pain, the hurt, the grief, the anger, whatever's there, for it to be fully felt and integrated. That will, once that process is complete, then you will no longer find yourself triggered in those situations. And to be clear, we all have this in our body to varying degrees, and sometimes there can be kind of several cycles of these, like feeling the emotions, and then we feel good, and then it comes up again, and then we feel it again even more deeply. Or maybe there's like other emotions. It's almost like layers of an onion. There's like, this comes, we feel great, we complete it, and then there's another one comes. And I really think that's just like the arc of being, the journey of being human in some ways. We're gradually learning to feel and integrate these exiled parts of ourselves, these emotions that we've shut off or repressed. For me, it was anger and shame were two things that took me a long time to learn how to feel fully, and it can be a lifelong journey. So do it with compassion and love for yourself along the way.
Thank you, Jonny. That is a perfect place, maybe, where we'll kind of wrap up for this. We'd like to close out the session with a poem, and Jonny actually selected a really nice one for us. All right, so the way that we'd love to do this is this is just a part of this poem from David Whyte, and it's split up into 6 stanzas here. And what we'd love to do is a group reading. So whoever feels called can jump in, and I'll just kick it off by reading the title of the poem here. This is Rest by David Whyte.
Rest is the conversation between what we love to do and how we love to be.
To rest is to give up on the already exhausted will as the prime motivator of endeavor.
With its endless outward need to reward itself through established goals.
To rest is to give up on worrying and fretting.
And the sense that there is something wrong with the world unless we are there to put it right.
The rest is to fall back, literally or figuratively, from outer targets and shift to an inner state of natural exchange.
Thank you all. Thank you for a wonderful session. Jonny, thank you for joining us today. Really love to have you. I learned a lot. I had some really good questions.
That was so great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.